Who's your emergency contact? Who should we notify in case of death? Welcome to the USP, where I spent the last 2+ decades of my life. When I first got to the penitentiary in 2001, around August, but I didn't hit the yard till September because I ended up spending 30 days in the SHU right when I got off the bus. But, being in the county jail, going to court, you meet dudes that were coming back from the pen that was still fighting some cases, or they caught cases back at whatever joint they was at. And they're lacing me with all the politics and the rules and stuff that goes on in the penitentiary. And one thing they emphasized was that when you get there, they check everybody's paperwork. And if you're a rat or a sex offender or a piece of shit or whatever, and don't keep your word, they're going to bust your head. They're going to poke holes in you. So when I got to the yard in 2001, that's the impression that I got, that every car, that everybody on the yard is gangster, is thorough, they're a man of their words, that every car checks paperwork and all that. But of course, the reality of it is not true. In the penitentiary, you got a lot of good dudes. You still got dudes that abide by the rules. You got organization and gangs that check paperwork and do everything that I believe they're supposed to do. But after a few months I was there, I learned that not every car was on the same par, right? And how I found out about that was, on this particular day, I'm waiting to play chess at the Blood and Crips table with the homie Creek from LA. He's a Blood out of LA. He knew some of my homies that was doing time when he was doing time in USP Florence. So when my turn came up, the homie Bolo, this before we was homie, he's a Crip, he's half Hawaiian, half black. He came and sat up on a table. And, for me, I was just like, I'm not sure how to react to it, right? But he's like, oh, no, ain't no more games. We're watching TV right now. But I felt like he was brushing me off. I felt something, So later on, like I said, this is not my space anyway. This is a Crip and Bloods table. And I'm new. I've only been there a few months. But, I got a little bit of common sense that I know that there's an issue here or whatever. So, like I said, I've shared this story before. And I'm sharing this story just to lead up to something else. But I'm just giving you guys a little bit of background. So later on in the day, when I seen Bolo going up to his cell, he lived on the second floor. He was in a single cell. So when he went up there by himself, and Bolo's big. He's a big dude, right? And so I went up there and knocked on his door. I was like, hey, excuse me, homie. He's like, what's up? I said, hey, later on today, when I was waiting to play chess, I kind of felt like there was an issue or something. I was like, did I do something to offend you? You know what I mean? He's like, nah, man, ain't got nothing to do with you. I said, well, what's the problem? He goes, nah, it ain't no problem. It's just that, I check all my people's paperwork. And your car, they're not known for checking paperwork. I'm like, oh, yeah? I said, all right, I appreciate that. Went back down to my cell, grabbed my whole box, because, I'm fighting my case. So all my transcript, my court transcript, my PSI, every bit of piece that I had that they kept track of every time I entered that courtroom, I had possession of it. So I took the whole box up, went back up to his cell. It's like, here, man, this is mine right here. I don't know what else they've been doing out here on the compound as far as the Asian Islander car goes, but this is me. He kept it for a few days. I don't know if he ever read it or anything like that, but a couple days later, he came back, gave me all my stuff, and after that, I was down in the corner shooting dice, playing chess, watching the TVs with the Bloods and the Crips whenever I wanted, So, but that kind of opened my eyes up to to my understanding of the penitentiary. Because like I said, when I came into the penitentiary, I thought that every car, every gang, every group checked paperwork, didn't let sex offenders on the yard, didn't let rats on the yard. And I come to find out that my car, the Asian Islander car, wasn't living up to that standard, you know. But me being a young kid and being new, they've already had a hierarchy established on the yard as far as the Asian Islanders, like the spokesman who speaks for us and all the rest of it. And through the course of my time, really at the end of the day, the only OG that I respected was a Guamanian dude named Frank Guerrero. At this time, Frank Guerrero, he already had done like 30 years. He was in there for murking undercover cop. You know, they had snatched him up. They didn't identify himself as police officer. They snatched him up and threw him in the trunk. You know, as far as his understanding, he thought he was going to get killed. You know, they were kidnapping him. So when they threw him in the trunk, if I got the story right, I don't think they pat him down because, you know, they didn't identify them as cops, themselves as cops. So he had a pistol in the back of his pants, and while he was in the trunk, he pulled it out and just started firing towards the driver, hit the undercover cop and killed him, and ended up with a life sentence for it. So at the time I met him, he already been down 30 years, but I just found out when I came home that they released him, right? After 40 years, a little bit over 40 years. But Frank Guerrero, he was an OG for real. Like, you know, everything that he did on the compound was straight. So, like I said, so now I'm hip that our car isn't functioning the way that I believe penitentiary car is supposed to run. So now I'm observant, I'm cautious of the interaction with everybody because we were kind of isolated. There was like not a lot of like different gangs or different races that fucked with the homies like tough outside of me and my homie Billy and a few others. Like me, I got cool with the Black Hand. I got cool with the Vice Lords, the GDs, the Latin Kings, the Crips, the Bloods, the BGF. You know, I made friends with all these different groups. But all these guys that I made friends with, you know, at any particular time, I was like, hey man, I got my paperwork right here. And I take my paperwork and I go show it to them. And they're like, nah, you good, man. You know, because word got around that I was good. As far as my paperwork go, I was good. And the way I conducted myself in the penitentiary, I was good. So that opened a lot of doors for me to fuck with a lot of different races and a lot of different gang members from different gangs and stuff. But at the same time, you know, I'm not sure how to go about, you know, overthrowing the hierarchy that was in Lompoc. And it kind of came to a head when the homie Mohammed, he's half black, half Hawaiian, out of Hawaii. He came over to Lompoc from Sheridan. And me and him got cool, him and his brother Johnny and a few other homies. We got cool. So we're always out there playing handball and stuff. We started forming a little bond. We were all youngsters, you know, in our 20s. And so one day they brought in a bus and they brought this other Hawaiian dude off the bus. Well, they put the Hawaiian dude with Mohammed. Mohammed lived in L Block at the time. At this time I was staying in K Block. So on this day, we come out of chow. We come out, you know, the Hawaiian dude's been there for about a week. So on this particular day, we come out of chow at dinner time, and Muhammad comes and tells me, he's like, hey man, I ran this dude off. I said, what dude? It was that new celly that I had. I ran him off. I said, okay. Like, he's like, yeah, I fucking went through his shit. He was showing me his paperwork. Like this dude that came from Hawaii, because he'd been in other places already, and nobody busted his head over it. So when he came over to Lompoc, he thought that it didn't matter that he was a rat. So when he showed Muhammad his paperwork and Muhammad read it and found out that he was a rat, Muhammad told him, hey man, when they open this door, you guys better get the fuck out of my cell. I'm gonna fuck you up. So when they opened the door, of course, the dude don't want to fight. He's a buster, and we ain't checked in. So when this happened, the older head hears about it, and the next day, it's in the mornings on a Saturday, I'm walking around the compound, and I see a few of the older heads sitting there with Muhammad, talking to him. So I'm walking the track, and I'm looking, and it looks like they're kind of like tag teaming Muhammad, kind of like scolding him. So me and the homie Billy from Utah, I walked up uninvited. And I walked up over there and it's like, what's up, Muhammad? So you good? It's like, oh, yeah, he's good. One of the older heads, they're like, yeah, he's good. We just talked to him. I said, about what? Because I can see that some of them weren't happy about the situation. And I kind of, I got spider senses, and I kind of figured that it was because he ran off one of their buddies, this Hawaiian dude. So I was like, what's up? He goes, is it about what Muhammad running that rat off? Like, oh yeah, we're gonna talk to him. I said, nah, ain't no. What do you guys need to talk to him about? Because me, when I feel like I'm in the right, I'm gonna speak on it, and regardless of who these dudes are, they think they're big homies or think they're OGs or gangster or the rest. If I feel like I'm in the right, homie, and you're trying to scold one of the dudes I fuck with that did the right thing, well, I got issues with that, So I'm like, nah, man. I was like, why do you need to scold him? What do you need to talk to him about? He did the right thing. What the fuck? We don't want no fucking rats and sex offenders on this compound. And this has already been after like a year that this incident has happened after I've been there for about a year. So I was like, man, come on, Muhammad. You don't need to hear about this shit. Like, hey, man, you guys see us? You guys see these other cars? The natives, the whites, the blacks, the Crips, the Bloods, all these gangs. They don't allow no fucking rats and sex offenders to sit around on this compound. I said, us having rats around gives us a bad name. Like, for me, I hustle all day. And I don't have nothing on the streets. I wasn't a dope boy. So I didn't go in with a bunch of money on my account. Everything that I'm doing to survive is off the grace of the people that's making moves on the compound. I don't have no connections. I'm by myself out there in Lompoc. There was a couple of homies that were from Utah, but they weren't from my gang or nothing like that. So anything I needed depended on somebody willing to deal and will and deal with me. And the only way that they're gonna will and deal with me and do business with me is if they know that my paperwork is good, and if they know that the people I associate myself is good, So through the course of this year leading up to this time, I've been building my rapport with the people around me. And now we have this situation where these old heads were having an issue about Muhammad running this buster off. And I'm like, nah, man, it don't work. Like, we're in the penitentiary. I'm in here because of a fucking rat. And a lot of you guys are in here because of fucking rats. And, the sex offenders, like, we don't, like, who the fuck wants to be around them, And so I told Muhammad, it's like, man, let's go. Let's get up, man. Let's go. So Muhammad got up and we walked off. We kind of brushed those old heads away, right? So later on, like I said, Frank Guerrero was the only dude I respected out of the old heads that was there. So I pulled him up and I'm like, hey, Frank, like, I don't know all the politics. I'm new. I've only been here a year, but I don't see nothing wrong with Muhammad running off a rat. I don't think we should have a bunch of fucking rats and sex offenders around us. And he was like, he agreed with me. And so through his blessing, I pretty much created a little group of the youngsters that were around my age that I function with that, when shit comes up, it doesn't get brought to those other old heads no more because some of them are under suspicion because of the politics that they try to put on Muhammad. I kind of got a bad feeling that maybe some of them were guilty of some of these things, right? Of being a rat or a sex offender. But for me, there's no way that I can prove it. And like I said, they already have their hierarchy and shit established, and I'm just a new kid. So I just went and asked Frank if I can just put a crew together, and if a situation comes up, whether it's within our car or outside against another group, that we're the first one to receive the information because I already know these old heads, they're not going to bust a fucking grape, So, so with Frank's blessing, I formulated a little crew that we're going to check paperwork. When a motherfucker come off the yard, when a motherfucker come off the bus, we're the ones going to interrogate them. We're the ones going to approach them and be like, hey, man, this is what it is. Where's your paperwork? This and that. But as far as like the ones that's already been there, I'm still weeding my way through them, Like I have, I learned studying with Mike Wilson from the BGF out of the Bay Area. I used to go study with them, and they taught me how to formulate questions and what to listen to when you're interrogating somebody, so it doesn't look like you're interrogating them. There's key questions, and depending on their answers, it leads you to some other questions, right? But, one thing that I've learned through the course of my time is that we can all make our lips move and make whatever sound come out of it. But our actions, the way we react to certain things, the way we think about certain things, the way we deal with certain things, that's an indication of who you really are, So, and most of the time, people reveal themselves by not from the things that they say, but from the things that they don't say. I'm not sure how to explain it, but I'm sure that some of you viewing this kind of can understand. Like, again, like we can say whatever the fuck we want. We can tell all the lies we want. But when we believe in something, when something happens, we're going to react to it in a certain way. And if you think the same way, you already know that there's only one way to react to a certain situation. And if you deviate from that, then that means that you're not really who you claim to be. So when these old heads had an issue with Muhammad running off this buster, I knew without a doubt that they don't really believe on that same line, that their mentality is different than mine. And I believe my mentality to be the right mentality. So if their mentality is different than mine, then I'm going to assume, but really not assume, because a gut feeling tells me that I'm correct, that these dudes are not what they appear to be, right? So later on we have an incident, well, not an incident, but that is Samoan dude that came out of Utah. They call him Lil Rock. And he was trying to tell me he was from SOS, Sons of Samoa. And I know a bunch of SOS from my time out here in the street running around, right? So, so when he comes over there, he comes off the bus and they put him in my unit. At this time, I'm living in F block. And I was like, look, man, as far as the Asian Islander car is concerned, like we're looked upon as a whole, as one entity, as one group, but there's different fractions. There's the Hawaiians, there's the Samoans, there's the Asians, and whatever. And at that time, it seems like, the politics was left to each his own. Like the dudes that come from Hawaii, the Hawaiians would check their paperwork or whatever, do shit like that. The ones that come out of New York, the Asians that come out of New York, the other Asian New Yorks would check their paperwork, or they were supposed to, right? So this dude, Lil Rock, supposedly came out of Utah, and I'm from Utah, so I approached him with the conversation. I was like, hey man, you from Utah, this is what I do out here. If you trying to fuck with me, I need to see your paperwork. Because he tried to tell me he got caught with a pistol and an ounce of dope. Now, right now, the laws are more lenient and it's changed, and maybe you can get away with getting 6, 7, 10 years for having a pistol and a dope. But during the time that I caught my case, during the early 2000s, it's one thing if you get caught with dope by itself, you can get, 5 or 6 years. Or if you just get caught with a gun, you can get 5 or 6 years. But if you get caught with guns and dope, there's an enhancement and it's a minimum mandatory of 10 years. I know this because I've read a lot of cases trying to fight my cases, and I've been through the system, and I met people that came through court with me that had guns and dope, and they were pleading out to 10 to 12 years. So the only way you would get under 10 years is if you were cooperating. So when he tells me, the Samoan dude tells me, yeah, they gave me 5 years. I said, what's on your case? So I got caught with a pistol and an ounce of dope. All the red flag goes up, beep, 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 right? I'm like, okay. I said, listen, homie, I'm not saying that I don't believe him, but I'm telling, hey, you want to fuck with me, bring me your paperwork. I got mine right here, because, we're in the same block. And he lived downstairs, I lived on the second floor. And me and Billy, we lived in the corner, so we're always kicking it over there in the corner. So I reach in my locker, I hand him my paperwork. I said, yeah, you got a few weeks when your property gets here, bring me your paperwork. So like a week or something goes by, I'm noticing that he doesn't come around me anymore, right? He's always hanging out with this dude, they call him Oos, Big Oos. John Etimani. Yeah, I'm putting his name out there because this bitch turned out to be a sex offender, molesting his stepdaughter, when she was like 6 or 8 years old, right? But I didn't find this out until I left to Victorville, because at this time, they're about to close down Lompoc. So when they closed down Lompoc, they sent us to Victorville. And in Victorville, they got the computers. In Lompoc, you still got books. You still got a bunch of books, and you really can't find out any cases unless these guys are still on appeal. And then you get like, every month or every few months, they'll send a packet. It was just all photocopy of like new cases for new rulings. So it's really hard to research people's cases without them knowing that you're researching people's cases. And at this time, they didn't have that computer program that all the attorneys use yet, that you can just log in, pay $100 and look up anybody's cases. But when we got transferred to Victorville, we got access to the computer. They brought in the computer, and all you had to do was type in people's names. So like a lot of them dudes that came with us from Lompoc, one of them was another dude named John. He was a Guamanian. Got his dude named Yano, the one I stabbed up, ended up busting his head for being a sex offender. Like, we started typing all sorts of people's names, and a lot of them dudes that came from us from Lompoc to Victorville were getting their head busted, because now we got access to the computer. And also, when we got transferred to Victorville, we're starting over. It's a brand new prison. So all of us that went to Victorville, we sat down and we had a conversation about what's accepted and what's not accepted. Because while we were in Lompoc, the Asian Islander car didn't have a great reputation as far as being on top of their game, being a man of their words and checking paperwork and all the rest of it. And I know I had 20-something years still left to do, and I'm not trying to have that reputation be stuck to me. So when I got to Victorville, we started a whole new regime, and we weren't going for nothing. Hey, you come through here and your shit don't check out, you're getting gutted, you're getting your head bashed in. No exceptions, right? So, but going back to Lompoc, like I said, I noticed this dude wasn't really hanging out with me. He was always hanging out with Oos and a couple of Islanders. So, I know it takes a minute for somebody to get their paperwork or whatever. So I'm giving him his time to get all of his stuff and all that. So one day, I'm downstairs, or not downstairs, but on a second tier, hanging out. He's upstairs on the third floor with Oos and a couple other dudes. So he comes down, say, "Hey, Mason, can I talk to you?" I was like, "Yeah, what's up?" He goes, "Hey, man, about my paperwork, Oos said that he's talking about Big Oos, John Etamani. He's like, hey, if you want to see my paperwork, Big Oos said to go holler at him." So I'm looking at this dude, right? Like, you're already telling me you're fucked up. Because if you're straight, you want me to see it. Just like I know I'm straight, so I want everybody to see it so they know who they fucking with, right? So you got something to hide. When he said, "Oh, go talk to John Oos, Big Oos," if I wanted to see his paperwork, I just looked at him. And I was like, "You know what, homie?" So I don't need to see your paperwork, because by you doing that, you already told me you fucked up. And his eyes got big, right? So I walked up on him. As a matter of fact, because at this time, we were already getting ready to get shipped out to Victorville. So for me, I was kind of, this is like my first experience dealing with this. So I just told him, like, you know, so I just approached the dude. I was telling him, "I don't need to see your paperwork. Fuck you and Oos. You can go tell him." I said, "Fuck him. I know by you not wanting to show me your paperwork, I know you fucked up. So stay the fuck away from me. Don't come around me. Don't be claiming that Utah shit, and get the fuck out of my cell." Right? And, I said that the way I said it because if it's not true, then he should pop me in my mouth, right? Then that's another way for me to test the dude to find out that, hey, I'm basically calling you a rat, that you're a piece of shit, that something ain't right with you. And if you know you right, if you know you're 100%, you're gonna bust me in my mouth, and you're bigger than me, right? But he didn't. He just looked at me, didn't rebuttal anything I said, turned around, and walked out of my cell. And I was like, oh man, you know. But like I said, that was my first couple years in Lompoc, and just being new, being young, I didn't really understand or know how to go about dealing with these situations. At the same time, I wasn't yet coming into myself. I wasn't comfortable with the man that I eventually became, you know. But when I got to Victorville, we made it a point that, hey, we all hustle around here, and to be able to hustle, you got to be able to have a relationship with different people from different gangs. And if and the only way that you're going to have a solid relationship with these other men is if they know that you're up to par with them. And I know I'm up to par. So when I got to Victorville, I pushed that line, and I've been pushing that line ever since until I came home. And everywhere I've been, from Victorville to Beaumont to Atwater to Florence, I've always tried to make sure, to the best of my ability, that everybody around me is up to par. Like the rules is, when you come off the bus, homie, I need to see that paperwork. And if there's any excuses or delay, I'm not trying to hear it. And I'm not letting you walk off the yard. The only way you're leaving the yard is on a stretcher. And that was the line that I pushed after leaving Lompoc until I came home. Welcome to the USP.